do is one of the major components of Japanese armor worn by the samurai class and foot soldiers of feudal Japan. History. The predecessor of the samurai cuirass, or do, was manufactured in Japan as early as the 4th century. Tanko, worn by foot soldiers, and keiko, worn by horsemen, were both pre-samurai types of early Japanese cuirass constructed from iron plates connected by leather thongs. During the Heian period, the Japanese cuirass evolved into the more familiar style of armor worn by the samurai known as the do. Japanese armor makers started to use hardened leather along with iron in their armor construction, and lacquer was used to weatherproof the armor parts. By the end of the Heian period, the Japanese cuirass had arrived at the shape recognized as being distinctly samurai. Leather and/or iron scales were used to construct samurai armors, with leather and eventually silk lace used to connect the individual scales which these cuirasses were now being made from. In the 16th century, Japan began trading with Europe during what would become known as the Nunban trade. Samurai acquired European cuirasses which they modified and combined with domestic armor as it provided better protection from the newly introduced matchlock muskets known as Tanegashima. The introduction of the Tanegashima by the Portuguese in 1543 along with a change in battle tactics caused the Japanese armor makers to change the design of the do from the centuries-old lamella armors to plate armor constructed from iron and steel plates. This type of armor was called Tosegasoku, bullet-resistant, or were developed. This type of armor was called Tameshigasoku, allowing samurai to continue wearing their armor despite the increasing use of firearms. The warfare of the Sengoku period required large quantities of armor to be produced for the ever-growing armies of foot soldiers. Simple munition quality do were mass-produced, including tatami do, which could be folded. The victory of Ieyasu Tokugawa at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, and his subsequent rise as shogun in 1603, marked the end of the Sengoku period. By this time, samurai continued to use both plate and lamella cuirasses as a symbol of the status, but traditional armors were no longer necessary. During the Edo period, lightweight and concealed armor became popular as there was still a need for personal protection. Civil strife, duels, assassinations, peasant revolts required the use of tatami-do as well as kusari katabira and armored sleeves, as well as other types of armor which could be worn under ordinary clothing. Edo period samurai were in charge of internal security and would wear various types of kusari gasoku and shin and arm protection as well as forehead protectors. Traditional armor continued to be worn and used in Japan until the end of the samurai era in the 1860s, with the last use of samurai armor happening in 1877 during the Satsuma Rebellion. Types of do. The type of do that originally came with a matched suit of armor defined the name for the particular suit of armor. For example, a suit of armor that came with a hotoku would be called a hotoku gasoku. A suit of armor that came with a karuta tatami-do would be called a karuta tatami-do gasoku. Kazane-do. True kazane-do are of lamella construction using individual scales known as kazane. They were used before the introduction of firearms in Japanese warfare. Kazane-do gallery. Types of kazane: hon kazane, hon aozane, Kiritsuki kazane dao. False kazane dao in the form of Kiritsuki hon aozane. Kiritsuki hon kazane mimic the construction of lamella armor, but instead of being made from true individual scales, Kiritsuki kazane are actually constructed with long lames of armor lashed together and are a form of laminar armor. Types of Kiritsuki kazane: Kiritsuki hon kazane, Kiritsuki hon aozane, Kiritsuki kazane gallery. Toseidao. Toseidao were made from iron plates instead of individual scales. Toseigasoku became prominent starting in the 1500s due to the advent of firearms, new fighting tactics and the need for additional protection. Toseidao gallery. Tatamido. Tatamido were made from small square or rectangular armor plates or hexagon armor plates that were usually connected to each other by chain armor and sewn to a cloth backing. Tatamida could also be made entirely from kusari. Tatamida were lightweight, portable, convenient for transportation, and were manufactured inexpensively and in great numbers for the Ashigaru light infantry. Tatamida were worn by all samurai classes from the highest class to the lowest class. The higher class samurai wore elaborate tatamida while the lower class samurai and retainers wore plainer, simpler designs. Types of tatami armor: karuta, tatamido. Karuta, small square or rectangular iron or leather plates linked together by chainmail. Kiko, tatamido. Kiko, small hexagon iron or leather plates sewn to a cloth backing. The kiko armor can be connected to each other by chain armor or by threads. Kusari, tatamido. Kusari, Japanese chainmail, consisting of links of iron formed in a wide variety of sizes and shapes, connected to each other in various patterns. Tatamido gallery. Tatami armor gallery.